to the Liberating Effect. I'm your host, Michelle Overstreet, and today I'm joined by Rabbi Mendy Greenberg and Isaac Smoldon, and we are discussing Chapter 4 in the Letters for Life, Build Healthy Habits. I really like this one.
Yeah, especially for this time of year.
Yeah.
As it gets colder and darker and rainier and you don't want to leave the house.
Yes.
I mean, so Rabbi, you're in a profession where you plan a lot of events, and I would assume that gets more challenging to bring people out of their shell as we kind of get into this time of year.
Well, yeah, actually, I was thinking that from one hand, the summer is not an easy time to get people either in Alaska, because people want to use every moment they have in the summer to be outdoors. But there's a specific challenge in the winter because, people get cold and things get dark. It becomes hard to drive, becomes hard to get out, and people just want to kind of stay. I sometimes say hibernate, stay in the house and be warm and just not interested. I actually heard once from the Rebbe speaking about how the fact that in the winter we wear extra garments means that there's more separations and divisions between us and others. The very fact that we have a coat on, we have a scarf, we have that symbolizes that we're making more separations between us and the other person we're seeing. So this is anywhere really in the world. During the winter, we experience a greater divide between people, and I think specifically here in Alaska. And what this book is saying, from the teachings we see from the Rebbe, is that it's so important. One of the aspects about building healthy habits is the fact that God created us human beings as social creatures, and some of us may think that that's not so important for us. We don't need other people in our lives, or there's some times of the year we don't need other people. And one of the messages saying is that if it's extremely important for our emotional and mental health and well-being is to have social interactions in a more consistent way. And I think specifically in the times when we think we're not interested and we don't need it, that is a time to kind of force ourselves to get out and connect with other people.
Yes.
And that's so important. Yeah,
for sure.
This is so timely. The month of September is National Suicide Awareness Month. And I think this is really key. I think when we talk about suicide prevention, one of the things that always comes up is the people who experience that feel very alone. And and so one of the ways that we can really combat that is by increasing that cohesiveness, that community togetherness, and having events that people do leave their houses for. And, maybe setting up, we have navigators, but I know that in churches, they have people that are like navigators that go pick people up and they bring them if they don't want to drive in the roads. And I really feel like that's vital to surviving winter well here in Alaska, having the right outdoor clothes so you're warm enough, but having a reason to show up and the means to show up in a way that works for you.
Yeah, and I think healthy habits means multiple things. It's very holistic, right? The first thing I thought when you're talking about that is how, there's that natural inclination to, as it gets colder, you stay in the house and you don't go anywhere, right?
The Swedish call that hygge.
Yes.
Right? It's like a good thing.
But we've talked about earlier in our earlier chapters, because this is the start of a new section of the book. The table of contents has the essential outlooks has been the first 3 chapters, and now we're into the lifestyle essentials. And this is a great time where you have that habit of, I don't want to go anywhere, and I'd rather just stay inside, and maybe that'll make me feel better. But if you have that social obligation to this friend group or this event that you're taking part in, you have that built in as a habit, it makes it easier for when there's those times that you don't necessarily want to do something, to have the accountability in place from others.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I thought too, Michelle, my first note in this chapter, I think is something that I've heard you talk a lot about since I first started working here, which is, I just have in quotes, "Did you eat properly today?"
Yeah.
And I was thinking the same thing today when I was looking over the chapter again. I have one of my kids that every once in a while, when they're behaving a certain way or they're asking something in a certain way, I said, when was the last time did you eat? And with this the book started off with a story about a youngster that was connecting more to their spiritual and religious side of life. And at one point, he went into a private audience with the Rebbe, and actually there was a custom by many of the more devout followers of the Rebbe, called them Hasidim, that they would, as a preparation to go in to have a private audience with the Rebbe, they would spiritually prepare themselves for that encounter. And one of the ways was by fasting the entire day. And this youngster goes into the Rebbe, Reuven Dunen, and he tells the Rebbe that he can't handle life's challenges and he wants to stay here in the Rebbe's office and never leave. Oh. So the Rebbe says to him, "Did you eat today? And when was the last time you ate?" And he said, "No." So he said, "Go out, go eat, and then we'll talk." So another thing about healthy habits, and that's another message of the book, is so many times different things happen to us in life, or we're going through different challenges, internal challenges, and we want to start looking deeper and trying to find the source for it and what's the problem in our childhood traumas and this and that. And sometimes it may be actually much more simple than we think it is. It might be that we're not eating well, eat good food or eat regular, have a normal schedule for eating, not just once a day, but, a few times a day. And it should be in the sets at the same time every single day. It should be healthy and well fed or sleeping. Maybe we're not having enough hours of sleep. Being sleep deprived is not a good thing for mental, emotional health. Are we eating? Are we sleeping? Are we sleeping enough? Are we eating enough? Are we eating well enough? These are so important for our emotional health and wellness. So instead of, not always do we have to go searching and speaking to therapists or anything, but maybe we have to make sure we eat well. And the Rebbe writes that a woman who is speaking about how she thinks these are very deep issues that are inside her. And he says, actually, no, I don't think that's the problem. I think you have to have better schedule of eating and sleeping. I think that's what it was about.
Yeah, I just thought of supper club right away. As soon as I read that first thing, I thought about it. Michelle always says, hungry kids make bad decisions.
It's true.
Yeah. I think hungry people, not only kids.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times they don't think in terms of the food that they eat as being nutrition. Like, this is how you fuel your body. If you put bad gas in your car, what happens? And I know over the years I've had so many conversations with young people about just making choices. I just within the hour, I had a young man in my office who is lactose intolerant who was telling me that he ate like 9 pieces of pizza last night and his stomach is killing him today. And I was like, well, why did you do that? And he said, well, I had some lactate. I thought it would fix it. It was like, okay. You can't take a pill and then 9 pieces, right? So the equation is the same. You have to really think, and there's a little element, I think, of discipline involved in that. That's part of the process that they talk about in the book of kind of evaluating where you are, thinking about what the journey, the need for structure. And putting that framework into place. I love the timing of this for us, that we're doing this right before the winter, because I think it's so important.
Right. Actually, the next topic that also speaks about the importance of having occupation, which I think also that's very important for my house, which, I mean, you can explain better about how important, how central it is to helping kids have better life is by getting them a job.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you could share more about that. Like, what do you guys see?
I think it's so the note that I had is occupation, schedule, social engagement. I mean, how all three of those blend together, and we always talk about work-life balance, and when we talk about work-life balance, we usually mean that, oh, you're working too much, you don't have enough of the social engagement or the other fun things, family time things in your life. But I think for our clients, really it's a different message where we're saying, no, like, having some responsibilities, having employment is an important part of that balance. You won't feel fulfilled if you don't have that piece that you're doing. And for some people not able to work full time, I think, we have a lot of single moms. We have folks that have, certain disabilities that maybe prevent them from having what we would consider a traditional full-time job. But I think the people that I see that have those circumstances, that are really thriving, doing well, are happy, are having success. They're still doing something, they're volunteering somewhere. They are, doing this part-time job to their unique ability, and they feel real. I think of another story that Michelle tells a lot. We had one client. I think probably we're both thinking about the same person in the boutique that, we had them on an extremely low prorated rent system where they were paying like $5 a month in rent.
Wow.
And they were working 2 hours a week because that was their capacity. But they felt really good about that $5 because they were contributing.
Yeah. I really think, thanks for pointing that out, Rabbi. I think there's a value, an intrinsic value that's created when you are productive in any way, whether it's volunteering or working. And I think in our culture, work is important, especially, young people having that sense that they're needed, they're wanted, they have value, even though they don't know all the things to do or how to do them. They're learning, and I really think that value anchors them in community.
Yeah. And one of the things that was mentioned here is that it's written in the Bible that a person was born to toil. So sometimes we think, that occupation is like only a negative necessity, but actually that's what we were born to do. And actually it was the Rebbe's 70th birthday when he at a big gathering where thousands of people came to celebrate his 70th birthday in 1972. And he said, people are asking me, will I take a chill and start taking less time, retire, thinking about retirement or working less. And the Rebbe said, it says a man was born to toil. So know that as long as you're alive, as long as you can breathe, you have to work. You have to do something. Now, obviously, if someone is older and doesn't have the same physical strength to do the type of job that someone could do when they're 30 or 40, so then that has to be adjusted. But the concept of just not doing anything, not having an occupation, not doing anything is something that's contrary to our very existence. So we were born to work. We were born to, and actually there was a talk discussed over here that was a reaction to what was going on in the 60s and 70s, the hippie movement time when the youth were rejecting the old rigid framework of everyone must work and you have to have a good career. And the youth was kind of breaking out of that and saying there's more to life than just having a career and having money. And the Rebbe actually saw a very special value to that rebellion, that people are looking for something more, for something deeper, for something more spiritual, for something that transcends the materialism, but yet at the same time disagreed with the idea that you could just not work at all, and to glorify the concept of disconnecting and meditating and living in meditation your entire life. And actually, there's at the end of the book, there's a letter mentioned how a very big difference of what the Torah brings to the table, the Bible, the Torah, and the Eastern cultures of what brings someone to we call it in Hebrew menuchat hanefesh, which means tranquility of the soul or tranquility of the body. That the Eastern cultures, their idea is, work is always going to stress, is not going to bring you any true tranquility. And from Judaism and the Torah is actually the opposite. The more we work, the more we strive and go higher and to higher heights, that is going to bring us the ultimate satisfaction to life, and that will make us happier and more content. So yeah, this is actually so the fact that we were born to toil is not just, we see that it helps, but it's our very nature that we are meant to work. It's the essence.
Yes. And there's a piece that goes back there to knowing your role, right?
Yeah,
and finding satisfaction, and even like we talked about last episode, even in jobs or roles that may not seem glorious, that there is a purpose for being there. Another quote that I have written down was in the chapter they talk about deposit from God. How your life, your roles, you've been given this money to invest, right? You get the money, and there's the folks that took that money and they put it to work, and then there's just the guy that just buried it in the ground, and that's all that they gave back was just what happened to be buried in the ground. They didn't want to engage in that, in using that deposit for any purpose. And so I think 2 steps there, again, going back to the last chapter, recognizing the deposit you've been given and what you can do with that, and then putting that into action through employment. But also, again, I think that in different phases of life, it's more than just employment. It's where you're volunteering. It's where you're interacting. If you're helping at, with your church or synagogue, if you're helping, a nonprofit, or whatever it may look like. It's not just about getting the thing that gets you the paycheck that pays for the house. It can be so much more.
Yeah. What you're saying about this is a very important point to bring out, the concept that our bodies don't belong to our bodies don't belong to us, and it's a deposit that God gives us, that we are meant to take care of it. So by us taking care of the needs of our body and to make sure we're healthy is not just again a necessary evil, but it's actually our duty to make sure our bodies are healthy and not to harm our bodies. It's not just here in America. I think there's a concept of we're free to do whatever we want for ourselves, but we're not free to do something to others. In other words, we can't harm anybody else, but if I'm harming myself, that's my own decision. But from here, we're speaking that no, that we're not free to harm ourselves either. It's not a choice. We have to, maybe the law of the United States is that, but actually from God's perspective, we have to take care of our body and treat it properly.
I love that you brought that up, because I've been in many, many interventions with people who have drug and alcohol problems, and one of the things they say is, I'm not hurting anyone but myself. And that's so not true. I mean, first, it's not true in the family and the social climate of recovery, but it's also not true, spiritually, that it creates harm, and harm in the world impacts all of us, and that's not what we're gifted with.
One of the examples of this, for this concept that Rebbe gives many times, is about when you're on a boat and you're on a cruise, and one person drills a hole in their cabin on the cruise, and the person next door knocks and it's like, what's going on? Well, I'm drilling a hole in the bottom of my room. And they're like, excuse me, you're gonna sink, excuse me, this is my room, this is my cabin. Mind your own business, right?
Wow.
Stay in your cabin. You don't drill holes in your cabin, I'll drill a hole in my cabin. And you're like, no, well, we're all in the same boat. If you're gonna drill a hole in your cabin, we're all going down, right? So we're all in God's world.
Yeah.
And when we drill a hole in our own cabin, it's not just our own cabin. We're all interconnected. Which actually that connects us again to this chapter. The whole idea that the habits of our physical life have an impact on our emotional and psychological well-being is, again, from the concept of one of the things the Bible introduced and Judaism introduced, the world idea of monotheism. So when we say there's only one God, not many gods, that's on a very basic level. But more so what we're saying is that that all of existence is one. Mm-hmm. Everything comes from the one true existence, which is God. Which therefore, even though sometimes people could think that our physical life and our emotional life are two different things, our physical life and our spiritual life are two different things. There's things we do for the physical life and the things we do for the spiritual life. A thing that we see very often, a concept we see very often in the Rebbe's counseling, is that one has an impact on the other. That what we do for the physical, to help our physical body, has an impact on our spiritual and psychological and emotional life, and the same thing vice versa. What we do for our spiritual and emotional and mental health, that has an impact on our physical body. So, like, for instance, many times people are going through physical challenges, medical challenges, and they would write to the Rebbe for blessings, for they should get physically healthy. And the Rebbe so many times said that a big part of the success of the medicine and the medical treatment you're doing is based on how your mood will be, how your emotional and psychological mood will be. If you'll be in a positive, if you'll take it positively, if you'll be upbeat, if you'll have trust in God, or you're going to be, if you'll be sad and give up hope, then the medicines will have much less of an impact.
Oh,
so
that's
there's data that backs that up too. There's scientific data that backs it up. I think it is a Malcolm Gladwell chapter that you turned me on to, where they talk about why when you go to the doctor and get a shot, does the doctor say, don't worry, this isn't going to hurt a bit, instead of saying, all right, this is going to really suck. I'm about to stab you with this needle. It psychologically, if you were told by someone in authority that you trust, a doctor, this isn't going to hurt that bad, then it doesn't. Then in your experience, it will not hurt as bad. And there's a ton of studies that talk about how positive outlook has a determinant on whether someone recovers from cancer or other diseases.
Oh yeah.
And so it's not just that it kind of, to this chapter's point about how it's all connected. It's not just this spiritual aspect where like, oh, you really should have a more positive outlook because you'll feel better, spiritually and emotionally, even if your physical health ties into your mental health, but vice versa, your mental health ties back into your physical health.
That's right. Yeah, it goes both ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's also a whole thing about having a system, having a order to your day, and how important that is.
Mm-hmm.
Not having a chaotic, day with not a clear schedule of what you do in the morning and times and sleeping schedule and eating schedule. How important that is to also to help our emotional and mental well-being. There's a story that a person who became a big science professor, Dr. Hanoka, who the Rebbe said when he returned to university to not do what he was doing prior, which was waking up at 11, 12 o'clock and eating brunch and then staying up till late at night and then having a beer at 1, 2 in the morning and then, but how important it is to have a normal routine and doing the same thing every day. And the Rebbe actually says about himself that this helps me. I do this myself, and it really helps me be much more productive and have a better life that way as well. And then there's again, we started off with the whole topic about being social, which ended off with a very powerful story of actually the Rebbe's cousin, a woman who suffered greatly from a lot of tragedies. Her father died, and then her mother died, and then she finally finds comfort in her marriage and her husband, and then he dies at a very young age, and she's extremely broken. And it seems like she basically writes to the Rebbe that she was a poet and a very talented woman, and she writes to the Rebbe. It seems like that she basically wants to seclude herself and walk away from humanity, basically. And the Rebbe writes a whole letter to her and explaining how that's the very wrong approach, and she should be involved with others and be involved in general and be effective and have impact on the world. And she goes on to have her house open for women and girls, and she becomes like their mother and mentor.
Yes.
And
yeah, she has a lot of love for people, but without her people, she felt no love herself. I think there's a real connection with that. And I think people get truly confused in grief and lose their way. And it's important to have the schedule. The schedule helps, it keeps the routine going. But I also think there's that connection, those connections with other people that are part of that. And I really love that. I wanted to share this paragraph because it was really meaningful. And I conclude with my wish that you organize your life in such a way that it will allow you to use the talents you are gifted with for the benefit of the general public, in addition to the benefit of the individual or individuals, and do this with vitality and vigor. It isn't drudgery. You're not doing that because the rabbi told me to. You take that gift, and she had a tremendous gift that she probably didn't even know about until she lost all the people that she was giving her love to.
Right.
And then she found that.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, very powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, this chapter seems when it starts to be like a recipe book a little bit, but if you really kind of open your heart and listen to what's really being written there, it's integral to being a whole person, being a whole functional person, and to organizing your life in a way that lets you experience more than just that. The professor is such a great example, that cycle of, being sort of off kilter all the time, a little bit off, and the peace that comes with what was the term that you used?
And the Hebrew word,
yeah,
menuchat nefesh, which means the tranquility of the soul.
Yeah. That's nice. That's a nice, I think, way of thinking about that, and that the structure is one of the ways to get to that. And take a shower for the love of God.
Yes, exactly.
That's really, truly.
Yeah.
I thought about that because we frequently deal with hygiene and, working with homeless kids. They don't get in the habit of showering and washing their clothes and all the things and underwear. You can't believe how many homeless kids come here and have no underwear. It's the weirdest thing. And so teaching them, to wash your clothes and I've said, for the love of God, take a shower. And I thought about that when I read this chapter. It was like, oh, it's for real. I was speaking something that was true. For the love of God.
Yeah, actually, I'll tell you that actually it was mentioned here another story of Moshe Levertov, who was a survivor of World War II and not the Nazis and communist Russia. He actually is a grandfather of my cousins and uncle, and I myself, my parents, my father was born in Russia, and my grandfather was in the gulags and in the camps in Russia for 7 years, and anyway, all my ancestors suffered from through communist Russia. So basically, when they were a lot of these youngsters that were getting out of the situation in the early 50s, they kind of were, America was a new world. They were coming from a very oppressed world. And the Rebbe was literally like raising them, and a lot of them were very, very much connected to the soul, to the spiritual, to spiritualism, and to the Bible, to the Torah, and they weren't putting a lot of emphasis on their physical needs, and I know many of them that the Rebbe actually told. They came into private audience, and they were thinking, we're seeking spiritual inspiration and uplifting, and the Rebbe told many of them to make sure they have healthy eating schedules and sleeping schedules, and that their clothes should be clean, and they should change their clothes every day, and should take showers more often, and brush their teeth. Like literally these and they were coming from more spirituality, and the Rebbe was very much about making sure. Obviously, he gave them a lot of spiritual counsel as well, but the concept of having a physical, healthy physical life was extremely important to being healthy spiritually.
It's Rabbi Mendy's turn to perfectly segue us into the next episode.
Yeah.
But it's good that the book starts with the healthy habits, and not just mind and not just spiritual, your spiritual healthy habits, but your physical healthy habits. And now that you're eating right and you're in a place, now we can be spiritually anchored, which is the next chapter.
Oh, nice. Very nice. Well, thank you. That's my cue. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate you both. I want to thank Rabbi Mendy for being with us. The Liberating Effect is recorded at the My House studio in Wasilla, Alaska. Our producer and editor is Ozzie Keener. I'm Michelle Overstreet. And until next time, thank you, fellas.
Thank you.